Hi everybody! So a few weeks ago I briefly mentioned that the first time I participated in NaNoWriMo was while I was taking a year off from school, and I thought I'd talk about that a little bit. As great as it ended up being, the decision to actually take a year off from school was really difficult for me to deal with. First of all, I had to take time off of school for financial purposes, but at the beginning, it mostly just felt like I was giving up. It felt like I was failing to finish what I'd started, and I didn't like that. If I start something, I want to finish it. But I didn't want to go into the massive amount of debt that would be required to actually go back to school that year, so I took the time off. Once I got over the initial weirdness of not being back at school, I realized it was actually a really good idea. The school year I had just finished was my first at that particular university, as I had just transferred there after graduating community college. And that year was probably the most stressful I had ever had, ever. During that year there were a whole bunch of things that on their own wouldn't have been that big of a deal, but they piled on top of me and ended up being kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. So the year I took off was a really good idea. During the year that I took off from university, I had the chance to do a whole lot of theater work at the community college where I had previously gone to school. I got to assistant stage manage 3 different productions that year, including a production with the Equity Company that was in residence at the school, as well as getting the chance to work in other areas in other shows. I also had time to finally participate in NaNoWriMo and write the story that had been whirling around in my head since I was a teenager. The time I took off from school was extremely refreshing and helped me to get my feet back underneath me and to actually figure out what was important in my life, which meant that I was able to return to school the next year with an improved mentality and a better understanding of who I actually am. And the point of the story is this: even if taking time away from something feels like failure, it isn't. Sometimes what you really need is just a little bit of time to pull yourself away from something so you can reevaluate it, and then you can head back into it. And the renewed energy you can get from taking time off is really helpful. And then sometimes during that year off, you become old enough to file independent on the FAFSA and you get a whole lot more financial aid so you can go back to school. So don't be afraid to take breaks if you need to. The time you take off can then make your return much better. Thanks for watching.